It's time for the Las Vegas Sports Line, brought to you by the Sunset Station with sports director Chuck Esposito. Presented by WagerTalk.com.
Here we go on a big Monday edition of the Las Vegas Sports Line. I'm Dave Cokin. Marco DAngelo is here. All right, Platinum behind the console. We'll have Chuck Esposito in just a little bit. And, you know, when I was making out the rundown for last night, it's kind of like, well, I could talk a little bit about this and talk a little bit about that. Get to the games. It's a short Monday slate in college basketball. Some good NBA matchups, a little bit in the NHL. And then something happened. Trade deadline day in the NHL, at last count, 22 trades involving 32 players. And maybe the most significant trade involving the Vegas Golden Knights, as they have worked a deal with the Ottawa Senators, shipping off a current player, a top prospect, a draft choice, and getting in return one of the stars in the league, Mark Stone. He is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, but the widespread belief is that there's already an agreement in place between the Golden Knights and Stone for an 8-year contract extension that will be announced on March 1st. You can't announce it before March 1st. If that's the case, the Golden Knights picked up something that's going to help them the rest of this year and for years to come as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one player that they gave away in the trade didn't bother me. The prospect, the 19-year-old, he was having a good season. Yeah. And, you know, one of the top prospects, but as you said off air, Dave, if you can get a superstar, one in the hand's better than one that might be down the road. And if they do have a deal in place, then this is an absolute no-brainer for the Knights and going to make them, you know, back in the hunt for this season. They're going to need, you know, they need a scoring punch right now, and this Mark Stone is going to provide that. He's having a great season.
Mark Stone is a scorer, and that's something that Golden Knights really need if they're going to try and make a push this year. And, you know, as lousy as it's been lately for the Golden Knights, one thing that hasn't been lousy, the goaltending's looking real good. Fleury maybe hasn't been at his best lately, but there's very few worries about him. And Subban has played well enough so that Fleury's going to be able to take some time off down the stretch and be fresh for the playoffs. And when you size up the Western Conference and look at the goaltending, you still kind of look at Vegas and say, you know, they might just have the best goaltending of any of these playoff teams. And we know how important that is come playoff time.
Oh, absolutely, Dave. A hot goaltender in the playoffs can carry a team to the Stanley Cup. Yeah. We've seen that. Look at last year, Washington, you know, their goaltender was playing out of his mind, especially against us. Mm-hmm. But, you know, that's what we need. Fleury's a guy that's been there and done that, so you've got that experience factor over a lot of the other goalies. I like our chances now. You know, I was worried we were looking at maybe a one and done in the playoffs. I think we're poised now to get some confidence heading into the playoffs, give them enough time to get that chemistry with the rest. You know, anytime you bring somebody new into a team, you're going to improve the team, but it doesn't happen immediately. Right. You've got to work at it, you know, which line you're going to put them on, have those guys work together. But we've got enough time to get that down and head into the playoffs on a great note.
And Mark Stone is a type of addition that's going to give the rest of the team confidence, too. I mean, you pick up a guy like that, it's something, to me, is a catalyst for the entire team.
And it can wake up the other guys, too, because, you know, he starts putting a couple in the net, and all of a sudden other lanes are going to start opening up for players. So it could be a good trickle-down effect for the Knights.
All right. Not such a good weekend for UNLV basketball. The Rebels put up a good fight against San Diego State. Really good performance out of the halftime break. And it looked like a game they might pull out, and they did get the last shot opportunity but couldn't knock it down and instead take a tough loss to the Aztecs and end up getting swept in that rivalry. It also hurts them somewhat as far as the Mountain West standings are concerned.
Absolutely, Dave, and I've brought it out numerous times with UNLV. They have yet to beat a team in the top four. They've dominated the teams below them, but they haven't, you know, this was the closest they came to beating one of the teams in the top four. And, you know, you needed that win to have, I think, to have some confidence heading into the Mountain West Conference tournament that we'll have here, you know, in a couple weeks. But I'm just not impressed with this edition of UNLV. They're just not consistent.
Time for us to take a look at some of tonight's action. We do that every day with the M.J. Christensen Diamonds 4 at 4.
1, 2, 3 into the 4.
Put them fours up. Put the
The 4's up, I said. Do it right now.
Tonight's action is just around the bend, and the guys want to get your night off to a great start.
4.
It's the Las Vegas Sports Line's 4 at 4.
Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. Unbelievable.
And one of those 4 o'clock games involves the NBA champion Golden State Warriors. They always draw action at the windows, and they will be on the road tonight playing the Hornets. So naturally the Warriors are going to be good-sized favorites here, and naturally they're probably going to command most of the action.
Yeah, they're 8.5-point favorite, Dave, and this is the first of a 4-game road trip for the Warriors, and they can't be in a good mood, Dave. They lost on Saturday night pretty much pillar to post. They came back and tied it in the third quarter at one point, but Houston had control of this game the whole way, and they did it without James Harden.
Really, I know.
And that's the part that's got to put Golden State in an angry mood. But just because they're in an angry mood, that doesn't mean they're going to cover the spread. As well as they've been playing, they're just 1-8 against the spread their last 9 games, Dave. They have been absolute money burners at the windows. The problem, they're facing a Charlotte team that you got to wonder how they picked themselves up. They found themselves down on Saturday, 19 points, only to come back and rally in the third quarter, or they were down 19 in the third. They had a lead with just 3 minutes left to go in that game, and they blew an 8-point lead to lose 117 to 115. After being down 19, you use all that energy to come back and have the lead and then lose it like that. They had a shot at the end to tie it or win it and missed. I just can't back them, but I don't want to take Golden State either. But I'll give you a stat for Golden State. Last 2 seasons on the road, after allowing 105 points or more in 3 straight games, the Warriors are 16-5 against the spread.
And those are with some pretty good spreads involved.
Absolutely. And Charlotte, as a home underdog the last 3 seasons, talk about a money burner, 5-15 against the spread. I lean to Golden State, but the line is just too high.
You know, when I saw this line, and again, I always preface this by saying I haven't been doing the NBA this regular season. I'll do some in the playoffs, but past the regular season, which may or may not have been a smart move, but it's the move I made. But I still see a number like this, and it's like, it just seems like a little bit of a strange number. We're talking about the Pacers-Pistons game, where it seems that for whatever reason, since the Pacers lost their star, they've been playing good basketball, but they're not getting any respect from the betting market. And honestly, I'm a little surprised that they're, last I saw, 2.5-point dogs, I guess, against the Pistons. I mean, I could see pick 'em, maybe 1, but 2.5 to me seems like, it seems like square value, but value nonetheless on the Pacers.
Yeah, the Pacers 8-1 straight up, Dave, 7-2 against the spread the last 9, but actually the Pistons come in here just as hot, Dave. 6-1 straight up, 5-2 against the spread. You know, I don't like to talk about revenge games because it's most overused thing,
Right.
But Detroit's going to have this one circled. The last time these two met in late December, the Pistons got throttled 125-88 at Indiana. So that might be a little bit of the backing for Detroit here. In Indiana, after scoring 110 points or more in 2 straight games this season, how about just 1-9 against the spread? I actually leaned to Detroit a little bit with that revenge angle there going for them tonight.
In the Big 12 tonight, Oklahoma takes on Iowa State. The Sooners getting a good win over Texas over the weekend. They didn't cover. They led basically wire to wire. Texas snuck in under the number late. But the Sooners got what they needed out of that game. It was a second straight win for them after a really rough stretch that was reminiscent of last year's swoon by the Sooners. These are important games for Oklahoma as they're trying to get back to the NCAA tournament again. Iowa State coming off a really bad shooting performance. They'll look to get healthy back at home.
Yeah, as bad as they shot on Saturday, they only lost by 3 at TCU, and TCU's a team that's been up and down all season, so you really don't know how to gauge that one. But, Dave, really, what's happened to Iowa State? They put themselves back in position when they beat Kansas State to have a shot to win the Big 12 title.
They were looking at maybe a 2 seed. I mean, if they stayed hot down the stretch, they could really rise. Actually, they're going in the other direction right now.
Absolutely. I could see having the letdown after the Iowa State game, but back-to-back games now, little bit of a concern there with them. Oklahoma, they've turned up the defense the last 3 games. They've held their last 3 opponents to 38, 35, and 41% shooting. However, Oklahoma, the last 2 seasons, when they're coming off a home win against a conference rival, they haven't strung too many together. They're 0-8, Dave, in their next game. In Iowa State, last 3 seasons, after failing to cover 2 or more consecutive games, the last 3 seasons, 13-4 against the spread. I have a lean to Iowa State, but, man, you're laying a big number with a team that hasn't played well in 2 games.
And at Lawrence tonight, a big rivalry rematch as Kansas State takes on Kansas. The Wildcats doing something they almost never do in the first meeting, which was defeating the Jayhawks. They'll go in as underdogs tonight, and it looks like the revenge motive has attracted a lot of betting action on the favorite. Kansas is now up to 5.5 in this game, and to be honest with you, I think that's too many points. Kansas State is playing some really good basketball. They're outstanding defensively, and if you think Kansas State's not going to be motivated because they already won the first game in this series, think again. Short of winning the NCAA title, I don't think there's anything else they'd rather do than sweep the Jayhawks.
Yeah, and Dave, how many average bettors are going to say, there's no way Kansas gets swept in the series with Kansas State? You know that's going through a lot of people's mind, and I think that's what's fueling that line to continue to go up. Kansas is coming off a horrible performance on Saturday.
They were not good.
They got run out of the building. That game was over in the first 5 minutes of the game. And on the flip side, Kansas State had a win just as easily as Kansas lost last week.
Murdered Oklahoma State.
Yeah, so this is a spot here where I got to agree with you, Dave. If I took the game, I would be leaning to the points. But I just don't trust. Kansas is 14-0 on their home floor this year.
They're still very good at home.
But they're only 7-7 against the spread for a 14-0 record. Slight lean to Kansas State, but I am not involved in this game tonight.
Current line of that game, Kansas 5.5 now. Chuck Esposito joins us on Mondays right around this time, and we have a lot to talk about. Chuck, I sent the rundown last night, and we can pretty much scrap that because of a big deal that was made today between the Ottawa Senators and the Vegas Golden Knights. Mark Stone is coming to Las Vegas, and this kind of changes everything as far as the Golden Knights are concerned.
I think it changes everything, Dave, not only with the Golden Knights, but the entire Western Conference. I think with some of the moves that were made, it's clearly changed the power. I think it's more Western Conference bias right now. But I think when you look at the Knights and picking up Mark Stone and the fact that I think they have a huge advantage over Calgary with Mike Smith and the Sharks with Jones and between the pipes with Marc-Andre Fleury, although they're third and they're probably not going to move up to second or first in the Pacific, I still think they win the Pacific and represent that division in the Western Conference Finals.
And that brings us to the betting aspect of this and this is funny because what I sent you last night was, if the Golden Knights are standing pat at the deadline, and we know the Sharks and Flames and some other teams in the Western Conference are going to do something. The Jets have made 6 trades today. We know there's going to be deals. If the Knights are standing still, do you have to loosen up their odds a little bit to try and get future action on them? Just the opposite. Now, I imagine there has to be some kind of an adjustment because this clearly makes the Golden Knights more of a threat.
It absolutely does. I think when you look at the entire hockey league, we were making adjustments over the last 48 hours. As soon as Columbus got to Shane, Columbus was all in with a number of players, Kincaid, McQuaid. They were making moves. You saw Winnipeg pick up Kevin Hayes. So there was a lot of teams. San Jose was active. So there was a lot of teams that were making these moves. So, yeah, if the Knights stood pat, we would have had to adjust them and raise their odds. But this definitely shows that they're all in. They gave up a young player. But I think more importantly was that they were able to sign Mark Stone to an 8-year deal. You look at the success of the Knights last year, and it was a perfect storm. We saw the years that Marchand and Carlson had and how explosive they were on the front end. But I know we talked about it, a couple of weeks ago. I was leaning towards a month or 6 weeks ago that they needed help on the back end, but I did a complete 180. I thought they clearly needed help on the front end. They needed somebody who can score. He's 6'4". He's a presence in the middle. He allows them now to have their first 3 lines to have so much depth and scoring up front. I think it's a move they had to make. after seeing that they were just 10, 18-2 against teams that are in the playoffs right now. They needed more scoring. They went out and got the best UFA on the board.
You know, this when it comes to the playoffs, good luck to anybody trying. I don't care how many guys Columbus picks up. Tampa Bay is a heavy favorite in the Eastern Conference. Anything can happen, but the Bruins, the Leafs, they're good teams. But beating that